again, and welcome back to another video where today we are doing something pretty different from what we usually do. So after taking a bit of a hiatus from uploading videos, I'm trying to get back into it, and I thought I'd start off with something a little bit more casual, I suppose you could say. A friend of mine, Cai Jones, and I jumped on a Discord call, and we had a little chat recently about source control. And the reason why is because when it comes to source control, I know zilch, nothing. I'm useless with it. And the main reason why is because my internet upload speeds are just so horrific that whenever I try to use source control, it just won't upload anything. I can't push anything to the server, and thus I can't use it, which is a real shame because source control is really important to learn. If you're unfamiliar with source control, it's a way of working on a project with multiple people in a team whilst you're all positioned in different parts of the world, essentially. The idea is you have this project stored in a repo, they're called, or a repository on the servers of, say, GitHub, and yeah, you can all sort of pull this project down from this repository, make some changes, and then push your changes back to that repository, and as you all do that, you can create a game. And there's not a lot of information out there about how to use this stuff, especially information that's geared towards audio professionals such as us. So I thought this might be a good opportunity to talk to someone who has used it quite a few times working on indie projects. And this video isn't really like a step-by-step guide to using source control, it's just like a general casual overview of how it works and some things to consider if you are going to use it on a project as an audio professional. In this video, we talk about GitHub and Source Tree. Those are the two specific services that we use. GitHub being that repository, the server that holds the project, and Source Tree being a software you could download and install on your PC that you could then use to interact with that repository and make changes to it. I'll have links in the description to both of those gizmos for you to check out, as well as the Git cheat sheet that you might see pop up in this video that Kai uses, so you can check that out too. Before we get started, now that I'm sort of slowly getting back into uploading content for you guys, if you are interested, I do have a newsletter where I post updates about this channel and updates about my website and the course content that's on there. Feel free to sign up to that. I'll have a link in the top there, I think it is the top right corner for you to sign up to, and if you do, you'll be able to watch a free exclusive video from my FMOD and Unity Essentials course, which by the way is hopefully going to come back out soon, so keep an eye on that newsletter. And without further ado, let's jump into that call I had with Kai and see where he can teach us about source control. Right, I'm recording. So
alrighty,
what we've talked about so far is GitHub's role as the sort of holder of the project, the main project that someone starts, and then Source Tree's role where you just use it to make changes. And I guess everyone else uses it to make changes to this project that GitHub is holding. Is that right?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry to get you to repeat yourself, Kai. Would you be able to just quickly go over what you were talking about the branches? So you've got the main branches and how you kind of push and pull over stuff, because I'm recording now.
So I've got So when I download the game onto Source Tree or whatever form of source control you're using, you'll end up with like the first branch available.
Yeah.
Which will probably just be titled main. At which point then you can click branch, and then you can create your own branch, which would essentially create your own copy of the game, so that you can work off of it without interfering with the work that maybe the programmers are doing on the main branch. So then you could just create your own audio branch, and we just, just like typing gameaudio, and then it would create a branch for you. And once you've created that, it will have a copy of the game from the latest build of the game. So for instance, this is an old project. If I made a branch now, I'd have all the changes from the 31st of August 2020. And what you can do is, so look, here's one branch that was made, this red one. What you'll do is you'll make your changes and then you'll push them, which means that you're sending those changes to like the master thing in GitHub.
So this is, that's the repository in GitHub. That is the project essentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And then maybe you're on the main branch and you see these changes or whatever, and then you can like optionally merge. So what that'll do then is it will take the changes from your branch, say the red one, and it will then put them into the main branch. Say you've added some sound effects to an animation, or you've added some music, and the devs are like, oh yeah, we want the music and sound in now. We want something to go off of when we're working. Then what they'll do is they'll merge your branch with their branch, which in this case, we are the red one and they are the blue one.
Okay.
And like, okay, cool. We want those changes. And look, there's a little note here because you leave notes when you merge.
Yeah.
It says merge branch feature pulse colors. So obviously someone was working on the colors and shaders for the game while the devs were working hard on their side of things. And they've decided, oh yeah, we want those colors and stuff when we're working. We want to see how they work in game. So they've pulled that branch, and you can see that little dot there. They've connected it to theirs. And then
there's been the main.
Yeah, and then once they've done that, any changes you make on your branch will not then interfere with theirs. So, like as you can see here, you've continued with your game audio, then it's going back on its own branch and continuing, and then maybe they'll want to pull it again. So you've pushed some changes, they pull it and they add it, and then you continue along your own branch until they want to add those changes to their branch.
Okay, I've got like a million questions running through my head. This is really good though, because yeah, I didn't understand any of this before. Let's quickly take a step back to like real basics. Let's say, you know, the programmers have their main branch and you want to say, okay, I want to create my own branch and start adding some stuff and changing some stuff, adding my sound, etc., or music or whatever. When you do that, I'm assuming you're downloading a copy of the game, right? So you can then work on it, and it's whatever version. It depends on, you know, how far in the game's been developed on that main branch. That's kind of the state you'll get the game in. So if they've made, say, level 1 out of 10, and you say, right, I'm going to create a new branch, you'd only have level 1 to work with, whilst they continue on and work on level 2, 3, 4. Is that right?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, so they've made a bunch of levels. You haven't pulled anything from those yet, so they'll continue working on that. Yeah. While you're over here doing your own thing.
Let's say I already have a copy of the game downloaded, right? And I want to start a new branch to work on it. Am I then going to be deleting that old version, replacing it with a new one when I do that? Is that how it works?
No, you can make as many branches as you want.
So you'd end up with loads of copies of this game in different states on your desktop. Is that right? Or on your hard drive?
If that's what you usually want. Yeah, you can, but like a lot of these branches here are all different computers, because I know that there was 4 people or maybe 5 people working on this game. So all these different colors are actually the work of different people. So this would probably sit on maybe the 2 programmers' computer. They wouldn't need to download these, because all they need to do is add the changes that they've made onto theirs and then continue with their work. It doesn't have to download the game again. It just basically just adds what they were missing from their main branch. Yeah,
so I think I understand that. Yeah, they don't have to sort of keep constantly taking versions off of this main branch for them to then work on. I guess what I'm asking is, when you create a branch and do whatever, make a change, is there any point when you have to make your branch again? Because obviously you talked about how once you've made changes and the programmers are happy to then merge those changes with their main project, they do that, don't they? They merge together. But then let's say you want to make some more changes, you have to create another branch, don't you?
Oh no, you don't.
No? Oh, okay.
Like, see, basically it just takes the changes that you've pushed and then you just carry on with that branch. That branch will still act as its own thing. It's just they've taken the changes that you've made and added it to theirs.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Your branch sort of keeps going until they want to pull more changes, and then it keeps going.
Okay, so yeah. So let's go back to that little example I made. So they've made level 1 of this game. You create a branch. You say, right, I'm going to add sounds to that level. You add all the sounds to that level whilst they're working on levels 2, 3, 4. And then you push those changes. So by pressing push, you're then saying, hey, I've finished with these changes. You're more than welcome to merge them with your project. And then they can do that. Then once that's happened, you can continue on working on whatever. Is that right?
Yeah.
With that same branch.
If I click the thing you click first, this is where there'll be loads of stuff up here of changes that you've made, and you get to choose the things that you want to send over. So say if you've added the audio, but oh, whoops, you've accidentally messed with some of the artwork and now it looks like shit.
Yeah.
You can be like, okay, cool. I don't want to send that because I've ruined it.
Yeah.
And then you'll like click it and you'll get rid of it.
Oh, okay. So you can select specific changes not to push. Gotcha.
But yeah, what it only does is it can only take the, what's the way of wording it? You can
take your time.
send stuff over, but you don't need to send everything. You can only send the things that are necessary.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I've changed the FMOD file. It has a new WAV in it.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, cool. I'll send that over. I'll just send over that I've changed this WAV. And then they'll just receive that one single change, but they won't receive anything else from the project. It'll just add it to theirs.
Gotcha.
Almost like, what's a weird reference I can use? Oh, go on, Power Rangers.
Okay, go on.
Say if you'd built the fucking Megazord thing, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And you're missing one of the arms. You don't have an arm. And then someone's just like, oh, cool, here's an arm. And they put the arm on it. And they're like, wait, sorry, I've got a better arm. So they take the arm off and they put another one on. And it hasn't affected the rest of the robot. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, no, it does. But okay, so that's what feature? That's the specific pushes that you make where you can say, oh, I only want to push 8 out of the 10 changes I've made because...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to rebuild the whole robot. I just need to replace the arm.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Even though I have rebuilt the robot, I shouldn't have done. I only want to replace the arm. So here you go. Here's that new arm.
It's like, oh no, I accidentally messed with the head a bit. Or somehow on my end, I've got maybe a spare head of the robot. We won't be sending that.
Yeah.
So we'll just send that to them.
That's quite a good example. I like that.
Okay.
Quite good visual representation of what's going on here.
Yeah,
that helps.
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah.
Can't think of anything else that connects. Oh, maybe Lego would have been a better.
Let's just stick with Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So going back. So I understand you create your audio branch and you can just stick with that branch, right? But let's say and then, whenever you make a change, the programmers or whoever's running this and has the main project can merge your branch into theirs whilst you continue with where you left off. But let's say that they've now made a lot of progress, and in order to you want your project to be updated to that level. What I thought initially was that once they merged your branch into theirs, your branch was now gone, and you'd now have to make a new branch.
No, not.
But you've told me you don't. So if you don't need to make a new branch, how do you then get that updated version?
You merge the other way. So instead of merging game audio branch into main, you will then merge main with your game audio branch. Right,
I see. So you can go both ways.
Yeah, so it depends on what you've got open. Like if you want to merge, if you want to merge this branch, main, with a game audio branch, then you need to be on main, click merge, and then select the branch that you want to take. And then if you want to merge game audio with main, then you have to be on the game audio branch, and then you have to merge that back into main. So you can take both ways.
Okay, sounds cool. It does sound though that could be like asking for trouble in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like all this merging back and forth, how the project doesn't become really messy and like all these changes start clashing with each other. Does that ever happen?
Oh yes, and that's when you use the terminal up here.
Okay. I've not seen this before.
I've got it open, but
Git cheat sheet. Oh, okay.
This is basically things that you can type into the terminal to get different changes to appear. Like here's one: git revert commit is what you type in. Create a new commit that undoes all the changes made in the commit and then apply it to the current branch.
What does that mean? Create a new commit that
So say you've committed something up here with all the files that you've changed, and you'd be like, okay, cool, I want to send all these files over.
Yeah.
And you click push, and then you think, oh fuck, I just added something that's going to break the game and set it on fire.
Yeah.
Then you'd probably use this to change it back.
Oh, I see. Okay, I think I was reading too much into it.
Somebody else sees it appear on their computer, it says, oh look, I can pull new stuff. They haven't done it yet, but then what you do is you quickly do that and change it back to before you sent it, so then they can't actually pull those changes and break the game.
Okay, I was overthinking it. So it kind of just, if you push anything you shouldn't have done, you can just almost get rid of it, yeah.
They won't receive the changes then and break the game on their end.
But then that poses the question, what happens if they do pull before you get a chance to change it? Now their game's on fire.
Then you can, I think you can also use git revert, or maybe it's git reset.
I suppose it's down to them now to maybe go back a version. Is that right? They go back to an older node, or what
use one of these commands, like undoing changes commands, to then undo it before they received it.
Yeah.
So before they've received that file and done it, then they've probably committed a bunch of their own changes on their computer so it doesn't break all their progress. So when they then pull the new change, then it's not going to completely destroy like 3 hours of work. So they've saved. So say like in Skyrim, you save the game, and then you kill everyone in Whiterun.
Yeah, we've all done it. We've all been there, just to see what happened.
If you don't really want the consequences of those actions, you just click load save. And you go back to the last one.
These examples are brilliant. You're coming up with. No, because it makes sense. Yeah, you make all those changes, but then you go back.
They don't remember that you just murdered all of them and stole everything that they.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you mentioned FMOD earlier.
Yeah.
And you've used this for like projects that use both FMOD and Unity.
Yeah.
How does that work when you're using 2 programs instead of just one? Is that all? I suppose they're both the project files are all in one repository, aren't they, for both FMOD and Unity? Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Like for instance, this one project, the one up here, actually, I'm working on. There are separate branches for separate folders that sit in the repository. So like we have our own FMOD branch. So anytime I send a change, like I've added music and I've made it loop, then that goes over and it changes the FMOD stuff, but it doesn't touch any of the Unity stuff. It's all sitting in the same folder.
Does that mean you have 2 main branches?
No, not at all. It just I'm currently on an FMOD branch, and that's the only one. Actually, I think that's the only one I have access to on this project. I just have the FMOD branch.
Okay, that's its own thing.
Small FMOD changes into the big file where the game sits.
Gotcha. So you have your main branch, but then off of that you've got a Unity branch and an FMOD branch, and then off of those, I imagine, say the Unity one, you've got an art one, an animation one, a UI design one.
Basically, just as many branches as you need, or as many changes as you want. I think you can also use this for like Cube-based projects, Ableton projects, or whatever. So it's just like if a client is just like, I liked that other version of the track more, then you can go through these and find the original and go back and grab it. So you can use this for pretty much anything.
Oh, it's like a backstop creatively when working in your DAW. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I've set a few games on fire before, and that's how I know all of this stuff. Team members have walked me through it so that I don't set it on fire again.
Yeah, that's how you learn, though, isn't it? Yeah, trial and error through your mistakes and stuff.
I had it where it was actually Gitch, that game. I had it where every time the devs opened it because of a change I made, then Unity would immediately crash and not let them access the file. I had to go in here and then type some fancy stuff into the terminal.
Right, let's see what Cai did there. Now let's go fix it.
So then, say if it was this one, say if it was this version of main where I fucked up, then they just go back to that one.
And what's so I know the name branches are branches. The dots are called what? What are they?
They're commits.
Commits.
It means commits. So that's like, this is where they've saved.
Yeah.
They've saved the game.
They're like points in time.
Yeah. This is when you've left right one, and this is when you get to the cave and you've discovered the new location, and you've saved before you go into the cave, so that if you die immediately, then you have a good save point, so you don't have to walk all the way from right run to the cave again.
Yeah. I've noticed here, if you go to where it says merge branch main into feature / sign prefabs, even the one before that. No, it is that one. Yeah. Can you see how like the branches sort of merge? It's like 2 separate branches are merging together. Obviously, it says, I was about to say the main branch isn't involved there, but it does say merge branch main into whatever. Basically, what I was going to ask is, do you ever merge child branches together? Because I thought that's what that was.
Essentially, yeah, because like, say the main branch where they're doing programming doesn't want any of the art and audio changes at the moment, but the art people want audio, then they can have audio on their version.
Yeah.
And they cannot interfere with the programmer's version.
It just seems like all this, it sounds like it's asking for trouble, doesn't it? That all these sort of different mergings should be sort of clashing with each other and causing the game to break once they all sort of come together. But it does just seem like it kind of works. Do you know what I mean? That once everyone's made their changes and you do eventually merge them all together, it does kind of just sort of, doesn't cause too many issues. Obviously, you mentioned earlier that you can sort of break things if you're messing with parts of the game you shouldn't be, I suppose.
Yeah, there's often problems with just like files doing something stupid while you're working. Like, I mean, I know there's there was the meme of it on it was Twitter recently, where inside the game Team Fortress 2, there's a floating watermelon, And if they delete it, then the game doesn't work. So they've left it there. That probably happened amongst this shit.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a floating watermelon that breaks TF2.
Yeah, TF2 no longer works at all.
Completely.
So someone along, like say if this was the TF2 branch, then someone along here added that watermelon for whatever reason.
Right at the way back. Yeah.
And it has to sit there now because the game can't function without it.
That makes no sense, does it?
For some reason, the game relies on it. Yeah.
What is that watermelon? How is that watermelon holding up the sort of fundamentals of the game that it just breaks?
Yeah, it's so weird how stuff like that happens.
Going back to audio, is there anything you have to bear in mind when it comes to using source control, source tree, whatever, when making changes in relation to audio? When you're using this, obviously, I suppose you're mostly creating your music, maybe even sound design, and you're just uploading files to these repositories. In these specific examples you're showing me, is that the role you're playing, or are you doing any implementation?
Pretty much on this project, I was just sending audio files.
Okay.
But for like games like Squingle, then we are making implementation changes. Like in your videos, you end up making your own scripts, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's where that comes in handy a lot more, so that you're not going into their scripts that they have and adding changes there.
Yeah. Course.
So like say if we put a bunch of play one shots into a script, but now they've changed that script, or they're no longer using it, or it's being used for something else, then any changes we push will just interfere with that. So that would be a problem. But if we're making our own scripts, then it's not too bad.
Yeah, but yeah, that makes sense. In fact, that probably did happen to us. I feel like we took a script that was holding some sort of functionality together. We wanted to use that script to use like a play one shot function and say, when this function activates, and obviously some mechanic goes with it in the game, say, I don't know, one of those spheres enters the socket it was meant to, we'd play a sound. And we did that, we made that change to the script, and then I might be remembering this wrong, but the function we added it to was missing in the script or something like that.
Yeah.
I guess that obviously doesn't work, does it? Because let's say whoever's in charge of that main branch removes the function, but we've got this older branch we're working on with the function in it. So we now add that one shot to it and we try and merge them. Does the function come back? Or does it just say, no, you can't do that? Does source tree recognize that there would be an error in that file and say, hold on, that won't work?
Yeah, it'll probably recognize that there's a clash of changes.
Okay.
Sometimes maybe it won't, but I've definitely had it come up being like, yeah, you can't do that. You've added a thing, but that thing is currently in use for somebody else and they've made changes.
I see.
So then there's like other ways in the terminal of adding both of those changes at the same time. Say if they both work.
Yeah.
Say someone on their end has updated the same section that you're working on where you've added something. Then I'm pretty sure there's a bunch in here where you can like rewriting Git history, Git branches. There's loads of stuff in here where you can basically just merge both of those changes, even though both things have been edited at the same time. It requires a lot of work and people who have a very good knowledge and understanding of how this terminal works. Yeah,
I bet. Yeah, using that terminal, they can say specifically what, if they wanted, going back to my example, where they can maybe specifically say, oh, they could recognize that function was deleted and now no longer exists, and maybe change the change or change the push that we're trying to make in some way so it does kind of work together. I think that's what I'm understanding from the terminal. It's almost like
it's usually what programmers
it's a way of specifically interacting with those changes. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's usually the programmers that do it. It's usually not up to us to decide what gets changed in here. The programmers usually know best. So usually they'll remotely take over your computer, or they'll just guide you through it, or try and take the changes on your end, or on their end, or whatever. Right. So it usually ends up being their knowledge that solves the problem.
Yeah, interesting. But like you said, thankfully you mostly do just creative work and just send them files. When you do that, do you send the files to anywhere specific in the project? Have you noticed, because you worked with on quite a few projects, big and small, using source control, I think you have anyway. What's kind of common practice, would you say, when working with programmers as compose the sound designer yourself, do they like, I don't know, create a specific folder for you to upload all your WAV files into that they then, you know, once that gets pushed and they have access to it, then they then just manually dig the files out and implement it into the project? Or I don't know, is there some other way that they, is there some other place you push send your files to? Is this making sense?
Yeah, usually it's just usually I'll open FMOD because FMOD has just like that way of doing it. Where if I go to, I think it's preferences. Well, you can set up source control in here. Look at that.
Yeah, I've always sort of noticed that using FMOD, but again, just never been able to use it myself. Have you ever used it, source control specifically with the project?
Not in here, but I
No. Do you find it easier just having the project, you know, in the repository?
Yeah, it's usually just the way that I know now. Maybe
Yeah.
it's more efficient, but I'm just used to it.
Okay.
It's usually just like in this section. You know how you build your FMOD into a 3D game kit or whatever? Well, essentially, you just send that build, and then you browse for the folder where the project actually is, and then you'll like maybe make your own folder within the project itself in your branch, and you'll be pushing the changes to that area of the thing. So just in your folder, so if there's a folder inside the main game or inside the GitHub labeled FMOD, like you've got assets packages and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This one is labeled FMOD. That's where you'll be pushing your changes, and you can just set that up in FMOD here.
Yeah, you've got this repository. It's got a Unity project and an FMOD project in. So you can, if you pull that project, you get both of those projects. Or sorry, if you pull the repository, you get both of those. Now, if you make a change to FMOD, if you're uploading audio files or you're adding audio files to the project and changing the bank files, are you then pushing the bank files themselves or the whole project back to the repository?
It's not a whole FMOD project. Luckily, they only need essentially, I think it's just the build data that they need.
Okay, build data.
Yeah, I think it's just that, because that's why I remember it as being, it's just you put it into there, and they don't end up with like all of the individual WAV files from what I can tell.
No.
What they end up with is basically all of that compressed into the FMOD build.
Yeah. So that's how bank files work. They're kind of like encrypted, compressed, single files that have not only all of your WAV files in your FMOD project, but also information regarding what you do with those files. So if they're,
yeah,
you know,
that's
if there's effects on them, if there's parameters, and if they're going to buses, etc., it sort of has all that information. So when you add stuff to the FMOD project and make your changes, you're just sort of pushing the changes to the bank files, which they then receive, and I guess updating the Unity.
As long as Unity knows where that file is, then when they pull the changes and they open Unity, then the changes will be there.
Yeah.
So you've sent them to the FMOD thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so that's
projects if you want. Like if they want to look over what you've done, you can. But
yeah, I suppose there's a benefit, isn't there? If they're familiar with FMOD, they might want to take a look at what you've done, I guess.
Yes, then you just have this build, which will go to the same place and it'll interact with the Unity project. And next to it, you'll have the whole file where it's going on.
Okay. But then I suppose if you're just sort of changing, if you're just uploading or pushing, I've got to get the terminology right. If you're just pushing the bank files, the FMOD project itself doesn't need to be in the repository. Is that right? Because, you know, if you're the only one making changes to it, does it need to be there?
It does for your sake.
Oh, okay.
Like say if you need to revert something and you need an easy way of accessing it and sending whatever you've changed that back to them, then yeah, you need it. Like say if I opened up a FMOD project that I was working on and this was connected to the game in Source Tree, like just the banks. If I make a change here and I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna change the EQ to be 0.5 instead of 0, then Source Tree will be like, hey, you've got changes. You did a thing. Do you want to send it? So it will still keep tagging you, being like, hey, look, you are making these things. You're doing that. You opened a project. Do you want to send this over? So it's all still there.
But it will send the whole project over, won't it?
If you've made that small little change, like say it's just like a filter or something, then it will just send over the data that the filter's changed. Like it'll just like send the updated build.
Oh, I see. So sorry, yeah. So the project is in the repository, but yeah, it's not like making an entire new copy with that little change and then uploading that and
No,
replacing.
it's just going into the existing one and then just
tweaking it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. Gotcha. So going back to what I asked earlier, that's general practice, is it? You have this kind of repository with both Unity FMOD projects. For you personally, what you've noticed is that you create your files, you put them into your FMOD project, and then you push those changes to that FMOD project that's sitting in the repository, and you kind of go back and forth with that. Then on whoever's end you're working with, they then take that project and the bank files that come with it, and they could do whatever they want in Unity on their end. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And then I suppose you can also pull the Unity project, can't you, and then listen and see your audio in the game. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's usually what we do first. Like with when we were working on Swingle, I'd pulled the main branch, and I'd gotten the most updated changes so we could work with the most updated version, implement those changes, and then I would send them through the gameaudio branch so it didn't interfere with what they were doing.
I see.
Yes, you make those little changes, send them over. It doesn't interfere with anything, and then they merge. And then if the merge is fine, then they have the new files. If not, then it probably involves looking over what you did and then probably just going through a list like this and just being like, oh yeah, okay, we need to fix it.
Gotcha. What about if you're not using middleware? Is it just a case of you make the audio files and it goes into a folder? You're just uploading essentially. Is that how that works?
It can be, yeah. Like,
again, I'm just wondering what you're kind of used to, what you've kind of, what's general practice in your experience?
Directly Unity yet.
Okay.
But I guess if I did, then I would have a copy of the master Unity file. I'd make my own branch with my changes on it in Unity. And then I'd make my own script, and then I'd start adding all these things, and then I'd merge it back over. So essentially, the only thing, if I'm working on the same Unity file as them, on my own branch, then all I'd really be sending is like the C# data and where the audio is stored. That's the only thing I'd really be sending over.
Well, what I was asking is, let's say you're not doing any implementation.
Oh, anything at all?
No, yeah.
I probably wouldn't even use Source Tree. I just use Google.
You could just send it that way. That makes sense. But okay. But then if I suppose you did have some sort of responsibility implementation-wise, yeah, like you say, you'd be sort of pushing and pulling specific scripts, just C# files. Is that right?
Yeah, that and maybe like folders with like new sounds, whatever way that Unity compresses it. I actually don't know how it does it.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Makes sense. Because a lot of this feels very conceptual, doesn't it? You kind of have to envision how this works. Maybe this is a bit obvious to you, but this is, taking me some time.
Non-tangible at first, which is why I'm liking the Skyrim references, because it makes it tangible. We've experienced Skyrim.
I am loving the Skyrim references. We need more of those. I'm just looking around there at Source Tree and just looking at all the buttons and stuff and familiarizing myself with the layout of it, I guess.
How you like get the latest stuff. Like, this is basically like a way of checking to see if there's anything that you can pull that might not have come up here.
Oh, so what do you mean? Sorry. What's the difference between the two?
This is actually pulling the changes to your computer.
Yeah. This
is a button that you can sometimes use to see if there's any changes that maybe haven't come up that you can then pull it to your computer.
Oh, okay. It's like a refresh button.
Usually it just does it manually, but sometimes it just doesn't. So you click that.
And that's if, say, you've got your audio branch, programmers have their main branch, but they've made a change and you want that change, you'd press pull. But if it wasn't appearing, you'd press fetch and kind of refresh everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gotcha.
And commit is where you choose what you want to send over and what you don't.
Before you push it.
Yeah, before you click the push button. And then what you do is then you're just like, okay, click that file, that file, that file. Then you type down here, this is what I did and this is what I'm sending over.
Yeah.
And then you click commit and then you push. So then when people receive it, they'll be like, hey, look, he added a punch sound or something. That's what that means. And then you pull that. It's like, yeah, okay, I want that on my file. And then you pull those changes. Or if it's something that you don't want, it's something completely unnecessary, like, here's a completely uncompressed 18-minute loop of a guitar solo. And you're like, wow, that's a really chunky file. Also, what's the use of this?
Is there any instances where you have to... You know how earlier you said you'd have, like, your own audio branch, right?
Yeah.
Is there any instances where you'd have to have more than one branch coming off of your audio branch? Or do you just usually just have one?
So far, I've only ever used one. Yeah.
Okay. What about, have you ever worked with other like people in audio on a project?
Not in the same project. No, it's usually just been me doing music and sound, so it is
Yeah.
always the same branch.
Because I wonder maybe how that might affect things. If say you've got one person doing music, one person doing sound.
I guess what they'd have then is either one of them decides to do audio programming, and then so like maybe the composer would send the changes, would send the audio to the sound designer and be like, hey, we want this done.
Yeah, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because yeah.
And then they'd both use the same branch, but it's one of them is taking charge of this side of stuff.
Right.
So it always ends up using the same branch. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Because I can't. Yeah, that makes sense. I suppose if you've got a team big enough for where, if you've got more than one person working on audio, it's likely that you've also got someone who's specifically implementing. So maybe you wouldn't even have, like you said, you wouldn't even use source control in that sense. You just have people making assets and just uploading them to a drive, and then whoever is implementing takes that and they can just implement via their main single audio branch.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So there wouldn't be any reason to sort of make multiple audio branches. I don't know. Is there anything else you think I should know or look into? Like, let's say I'm, a composer. No, well, yeah, a composer, and I've just come to you and gone, hey, Kai, I'm gonna be making some music on this, I don't know, this platformer, right? And it's all remote work. I'm doing a bit of FMOD implementation as well. But I need to use source control. What should I know to work with these guys? Let's say it's also GitHub and Source Tree. What should I know?
Well, first of all, you need to know how to copy the game from here and get it onto your computer. Then you need to find out how to connect it to Unity. Then you need to figure out, well, are you going to use middleware? What do you think the answer would be to that?
Sorry, wait. If we go back a second, connect what to Unity? What, the repository?
No, just like the folder that comes with the game that you've just downloaded. So you've added this to source tree. It will then copy a copy of the game to your computer. Like for instance, there's probably now in my documents a file that says stoppant, and it's got all this in it.
Okay. Oh yes. Sorry, I'm with you. Yeah. So you've got the project
Unity,
essentially.
Click add, and then put it on there, and then what I do from there is make my own branch, and then we decide if we're using FMOD or not, and then we'd add that to our branch, and then at some point very quickly we'd begin, like really early on in the project, if the composer's on early, then the first thing we do is merge the FMOD file from your branch into the main project, and then merge back so that you're back on your branch. Just so then it's planted in early, so then adding it later isn't a pain in the ass. So then you can add changes without having to interfere with anybody else.
Okay, so as soon as you get this audio person on board, the first thing they do is, they take that link you showed me right at the beginning from GitHub, where they get like the repository, stick it in source tree, and then they have access to it. So the first thing they do is download the project, and now they've got physical files on their computer. Then they create an FMOD project, integrate it, I'm guessing. And then, do we make the audio branch now? Is that right? We just do it straight away? Or do we push those changes first? Or
no, I definitely make... Actually, that's actually a really good question. Maybe I would add it to the main branch and then veer off, but then I guess it depends on the size of the project.
Okay.
So I guess it depends on how the team feels, I guess.
Why would it depend on the size of the project?
Because maybe if you're adding it to the main branch and there's loads of other people working on it at the same time as you setting up FMOD on the main branch, then it might cause some people some issues if you...
What? Because they might be pulling FMOD changes and then they're working on art, you mean?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe like there's loads of people that are relying on main right now, and if you start fucking with main as a new person, then they might get really angry and you might end up destroying something unintentionally.
You might accidentally create a watermelon that can't be destroyed.
Yeah, some stupid shit like that. So maybe, it depends on team size and how much you trust them and how much they trust you. But I'd probably make a branch first, then add FMOD, and then merge that with main, and then merge back so you're back on your own branch.
Yeah, gotcha.
So then FMOD is on main without you having to fuck with absolutely anything else.
Oh, sorry, FMOD's not on your audio branch?
Oh no, it is, and then you merge it into the main branch, and then you go back to your audio branch.
And go from there. Okay, I think I'm with
Yeah.
you. Does that not still have the same problem but when someone else working on the project wants to pull from main, they're going to end up with an FMOD project that they don't need?
You would probably clear it with the team first.
Right. Okay.
I think you'd just be like, hey, look, I've got FMOD and it's set up. Are we okay to merge this with the main branch for now? And they'd probably be like, either no, we need to push this change first, and then, or maybe they'll just be like, yeah, okay, add it now. So then they'll let the team know, be like, hey, we're doing this to it right now.
Mm.
So then you merge that. People who need to pull the latest change will pull it, and then you can just go back to your audio branch and make your changes there. And then, oh, also a little thing that you need to know.
Yeah.
You know when it says branches here and it says main?
Oh, sorry, you're not showing your screen anymore.
Oh, why not?
Sorry, were you pointing things out as you were explaining all that?
Yeah.
When you left the call and joined in again, it disappeared.
God damn it.
There we go. Okay.
You know how it says main here?
Yes.
There'll be like a lot of things under this. There'll be like main, there'll be gameaudio down there. You know, like there are here, like you got head and main. Like there'll be different tabs.
And then those tabs branches.
Yeah, and whichever one that you have highlighted is the one that the changes will currently be going to.
Oh, when you're pushing, you mean?
Yeah, so if you've made any changes since clicking on it. Like say I clicked on main and then I clicked on FMOD and I started doing some stuff here, whatever. Then when I go back to source tree, it'll be like, you have changes that you need to send to main.
That's clever.
It won't recognize the gameaudio branch because you're not clicked on it. So you need to make sure that you're clicked on the right branch when you're making your changes. Otherwise, you're going to have to possibly redo them again or find a way of merging it with main and annoy the programmers.
Right, okay. So depending on so before you make changes, you have to select a specific branch that you want those changes to be pushed to.
Yeah, they call it checking out. So you check out the branch that you're supposed to be working on, which is gameaudio, and then you make your changes, and then you merge that with main.
That seems like you could easily make mistakes with that.
Yeah, you could, but luckily, it's pull or push up here. So if you have noticed that you've done it, then you don't push your changes, and then you have to. There's probably a really clever way in Git of
to jump those changes to the right branch. Yeah, I was going to say, do you have to then work all those changes back, and then redo them in the right branch?
I reckon there must be a way in Git, because I think I've done it before, where it's just like, oh shit, I made changes on the wrong branch.
Yeah.
And then you can get it onto the right branch. But to save everybody time and to not annoy programmers, just make sure that your branch that you're supposed to be working on is checked out.
Gotcha. Seems very important. Thanks for telling me that.
You've got the 3 different branches here. Like you've got main, you've got origin main, then you've got origin head. Like those are like 3 different things. So yeah, just make sure you're on the right one. Otherwise, you're going to be sending changes to the wrong people by accident.
Cool. Is there anything else you can tell me you think I should know? Again, going back to that example of me being a rookie composer. I am a rookie.
The basics of terminal, like so that you don't have to hassle programmers, just knowing what the basic commands are if you've made a mistake.
Now, is this... Yeah, that's a point. Are these commands specific to source tree or any... source control that uses Git?
To Git. Yeah, this is Git stuff.
Because Git's almost like... It's like the thing at the top, isn't it? The sort of technology that all these sort of source control things use, whether it's source tree, GitHub, GitLab, etc.
Yeah, so I think this is basically a way of...
So these commands are universal?
Yeah, this is a way of making changes to the game, or maybe just like the updates that you've made or whatever, without having to interfere with the project. Essentially, it's like instead of like going into the main project and being like, oh no, I fucked with art and all this stuff, instead of going into it and correcting it into the game, you just type in terminal, okay, we need to reverse these changes and change that.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's like the way of doing it. I think just the basic commands in there, which I guess are probably just stuff like what's some good ones? Where's branches in here? Wait, full screen. Probably git pull, the git push commands, probably some of the git log ones, because you can mess up a lot. Rewriting git history, I think, is ridiculously important, because if you do make a mistake and you don't want to bother the team, then if you learn like the basic commands, then there should be an easy way of fixing it.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice one. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else you think I should know?
Not that I can think of. If I do, I'll let you know.
Well, yeah, I think with all this Git stuff, I'm going to call it there. I hope I haven't taken up too much of your time today. It's definitely been helpful, I'll tell you what, because there's, like you said, all this sort of conceptual stuff about branches and that. I've just not had any hands-on experience, so I've heard of these terms: push, pull, merge, branches, commits, and stuff.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Doesn't mean a lot to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
still find it with anything in C# where people explain, oh, this thing's called that, and I'm like, well, why the fuck is it called that?
yeah,
Because obviously
exactly.
it'd be named this thing, which feels more relevant to me. You know, it's weird. Yeah,
Cool.
I think that's enough to get started. Definitely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your help, Kai.
That's cool.